Welcome to Author Platform Demystified, what it is, why you need it, and how to start. So did I proceed? Did that go to the next slide, James?
Yes, it did.
Okay, good. So I am Linda Secondary, and I am a creative director and a publishing strategist. And I am the founder of the Strategic Author, which is a book coaching program to help authors understand the business of publishing, because publishing is just that. It is a business. I have 25 years of experience in-house. Most recently, I was the creative director at Oxford University Press, where I managed a team of 45 designers and art directors producing 3,000 books a year. And I coordinated publishing strategy with publishers and marketers, editors, and authors. And it is that background that informs everything that I do in this workshop, talking about platform, but also the work that I do with my clients in the strategic author and my clients who come to me to develop books and take them to market. So, as I said, publishing is a business. And in 2020, 2.6 million books were published. And that is a, astonishing figure. 15 years ago, 500,000 books were published. So just to understand the increase in volume in a relatively small period of time, that, allows us to see that publishing, the context of publishing, the environment of publishing is completely different than it ever has been in its history. It's been transformed by what? It's been transformed by the ease of publishing, print on demand, desktop publishing. All of these things have allowed more books to be produced by smaller presses, but also by independent authors. And that really has just, caused this enormous volume of books and competition in a landscape. And, this other astonishing statistic, 0.01% or 268 titles sell more than 100,000 copies. And, you can see in the graphic, and the graphic actually, over demonstrates what 0.01% looks like in that circle. You wouldn't really even be able to see it, but in order to make my point, I made a skinny little line. But this is a rare group in this large audience. So if we think 2.6 million books were published in 2020, 15 years ago, 500,000. Although, traditional publishing has definitely increased its scale as well, we can understand that the majority of that 2.6 million, I would say something around at least 1.5 million, if not 1.75 million, those are self-published books. So when we look at the statistic about how many books were sold, we need to keep in mind that some of those books were not supported with any kind of promotion or marketing or platform, and that attributes to the fact that so few books have sold 100,000. I also want to say that 100,000 books is a lot of books to sell. You could be a very successful author and have sold, 10,000 copies or 15,000 copies of your book, 5,000 copies. So that is, it is a high gauge to be considering, but it is a statistic for a trade house. That's really where they begin to think a book is successful. So that's why this number, 100,000. So if you think about the trade books now, so I'm not talking about the 2.6 million, I'm talking about the maybe 750,000 that have been published by trade houses. 34% of those are selling more than 1,000 units lifetime. But if you switch that perspective, that means that 66% of those books published by trade houses are selling less than 1,000 units lifetime. And as someone who's been in publishing for, nearly 30 years, that really is an incredibly astonishing statistic. There was a time in publishing where if you were a reputable publisher, uh, publishing, work of note, that you were almost guaranteed 1,000 or 1,500 sales of every single book that you published because of the library market alone. Um, and those library budgets have, really been decimated, and acquisitions has been flipped from librarian focused acquisitions to user focused acquisitions, meaning that if people aren't asking for a book, a library isn't going to acquire it. And that reframing of what it means to be a library and to maintain a curated list of books, that has impacted the industry. I would argue almost as much as self-publishing has. So in a relatively small period of time, all of the assumptions that have been made by publishers in order to make what is already a very slim margin business workable, those assumptions have all been thrown out the window, and publishers have to do the math, and the math is very difficult. So, generalizing, obviously books are so different, but if you want to sort of generalize, it costs about $15,000 for a publisher to produce a book. And that includes all the things, the acquiring the manuscript in the first place, the editing, the design, the promotion, the marketing, the placement, their overhead costs, unit costs. So for a book, if you're selling 1,000 of them and you make about $5.50 a unit, you've made $5,500. So you're, $9,500 in the red. And publishing as a business has always been one in that, one or two really successful books a season are going to carry the fiscal year. It has rarely been the assumption that, every book is going to break even. Smaller publishers, like my background when I was at not Oxford University Press, but before that, when I was at Columbia University Press, we really did try to ensure that every book was going to break even. At least we had the hope that every book was going to break even, because we were a small, not-for-profit press, very tight margins, very tight audience. Trade publishers work a little more fast and loose. And the assumption is that not every book is going to break even, but some books are going to do extraordinarily well, and they're going to kind of carry everyone along. But nonetheless, if you're looking at losing nearly $10,000 on, what did we say, 66% of your titles, this is putting an enormous amount of strain on the books that do well. And obviously, you want to think that you're acquiring books that are going to do well. So I don't mean to say that they acquire books thinking, oh, this is going to be a real loser. No, every book that a publisher signs a contract on, they want to believe is going to make money. And so how are they rationalizing these decisions? How are they deciding which books are going to make money and which books aren't? And so this environment, which is, as I've described, it's fraught, it's perilous, it's busy. They're looking more and more to authors to establish an audience for their books. And it's not that publishers are being lazy, it's that, the air is just filled. It is the competition is intense. Attention is intense. And if they can sign an author who already has an amazing audience, an engaged audience, then they obviously have a better chance of selling to that audience at the very least, and hopefully an audience beyond that audience, so that they can make their investment back. And so that audience we're describing as a platform. So I'd like to invite you all to a 5-day challenge that we're hosting in August on the 17th to the 21st. And this is going to be on the Strategic Author platform. We'll give you an opportunity to take a peek behind the curtain and see what goes on at the Strategic Author. And we'll learn about comparable titles, which is one of the tools in a publisher and an author's toolkit to understand where their book fits in the landscape. And it'll be a great event. I'm sure you'll learn a lot, and I'd love to see you there. Totally free. Okay. Does anyone have any questions at this point before I start? Yeah, Stan.
Not a question, but if you can go back a couple of slides. One more. There it is. That one. The next one. There. Since you're among friends, I thought I might point out I think a typo
Mm-hmm.
on each books.
Oh, okay. Where's that? What line? Where? Oh,
Publishers
I
and this.
see. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Just for the next time you present it.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Anything else? Anybody want to say anything? No? We're good? Okay. So I was recently at a talk where Neil Millay, editorial director, was talking about the acquisitions process. And he said that, within minutes of receiving a proposal, he is Googling the author. And so what that means is that he's evaluating the author's platform before he even looks at the proposal or the manuscript. And he's doing that to create a context, to, begin to understand the reach of this author. It's not the only thing that he's evaluating, but it is absolutely something he's evaluating. And if he's evaluating it first, you have to understand that he's got that in mind while he's evaluating the rest of the proposal then, right? So the way to think of this process is to think of a tripod. And one of the legs of that tripod is platform. The other is obviously editorial quality. And then there are, this idea of how your community can help you. So baked in sales, any sort of commitment. If you know that you are speaking at this event and you will be selling through to that event, or you're doing a partnership with an organization and they want to buy, 3,000 copies, or you have a book that is, great for course adoption, and, there are already 5 professors who are willing to add you to their syllabus. Those metrics also really are valuable. But Neil said, 2 strong legs can get you signed, but 1 won't. So that means as an author, you're likely going to do better if you can demonstrate to the publisher that not only you have great editorial quality, that the book is really interesting, engaging, worthwhile, but that you can drive sales in some way. And not everyone has baked in sales. It's a very specific kind of book that you're going to get that baked in sales leg of the tripod. So platform, though, is where you can inhabit a space of your own choosing and demonstrate value. So what is platform anyway? it's not just an online presence. It really is having a relationship with an audience of potential readers, or perhaps they're readers of yours in other media, or they engage with you in other media in other ways. So it's visibility, trust, and relevance. And your platform is an ecosystem that you create to engage with readers. And there are a variety of channels. There are owned channels, earned, and rented. So owned is your newsletter, your website, your blog. These are the things that you control, that you have the power to increase or decrease the amount of engagement, the topics, the content, and how you're doing it. There's a compounding value with owned in that the more you engage, likely the more interest you get, and you have a direct relationship with your readers. You're not obligated to communicate with them through some other means. Earned is press and reviews and media attention. That is amazing for credibility, for reach. These are big uh, instances where you can reach a lot of people, um, beyond any platform that you could possibly own, but you have to earn them. They're not a given, and they can be very difficult to get, and you may not get it at all. And then rented are your social media, your online platforms for reviews, because although those are reviews, they live on a platform, and a platform can change. A platform can disappear. It can go out of fashion. It can blow up for some reason or other. And that is why, although you can get a lot of visibility in that rented space, you don't want to rely on it exclusively. Um, the benefits of it are obviously amplification and discoverability. Your newsletter, you need to have someone's email address enabled in order to communicate with them. Your website, they need to find you. That's discoverability, and there are ways to increase that discoverability, but it is less likely discoverability than in a social media environment, where if you're doing really well with social media, the algorithm will elevate you and make you much more discoverable. uh, Find relationships where your content is similar to other content, and will value you in those relationships, and then that can lead to great amplification, but it can also lead to loss of that amplification if, for whatever reason, your content does not continue to be engaging in the same way. Or, as we've seen with the likes of Twitter, something can happen and a very popular platform can go out of fashion. People can leave, and then those patrons who were really reliant on that audience, they've lost touch with that audience because there's no direct relationship to that audience. So every author's foundation should be a website and a newsletter. And for the reasons I've explained, you own those. They likely aren't the only thing. You should have at least one social media that you engage with, but you want to be able to drive people to your website so that they can find information about you, find your newsletter, sign up for your newsletter, and then once they're on your newsletter, you can engage with them directly and regularly in this sort of controlled relationship way. So there was a time when traditional publishers thought, oh my God, you have to have at least 100,000 followers for us to even look at you. And those 100,000 followers, excuse me for a second, those 100,000 followers are obviously going to translate into at least, 50,000 book sales. I don't know what kind of metrics they were using, but they were expecting them to translate into enormous book sales. Um, and, that thinking has shifted. Uh, Recently, I've heard a lot of talking about how it's really more about the engagement than the number. So, a smaller number of engaged followers or engaged newsletter subscribers um, is much more valuable than an enormous number of not engaged social media followers. And that's because typically 1 to 3% of social media followers actually translate into book buyers. And that's really an interesting statistic if you think about it. And this data, obviously is generalized, but this has obviously been happening, for a few years and is one of the reasons why publishers are sort of maturing in their thought about social media followers. Whereas newsletter subscribers, you can see the statistics here, for a kind of a not so active newsletter. It's about 1 to 3%. A decently engaged author list, 3 to 7. Very warm, 8 to 7, and then super fans it can get as high as 30%. And these are the statistics that convert into book buyers. So again, you can see how there is a certain level of agency on the part of you as an author, as a newsletter writer, that you can get more people engaged by being more engaging. And those followers on your newsletter will translate more kind of proactively into actual book purchasers. And this makes you more attractive to a publisher. Now, I'm framing this in terms of traditional publishing, but all of these things are true for a self-published author as well. Because, if you're self-published, you've got to find some way to reach your audience. And like I said, the newsletter is probably the best way to reach an audience. And I think I just recently found these stats, and I find them to be pretty accurate when I think of myself. I mean, I'm not an author per se, but in terms of my engagement and how my engagement translates into things like, this isn't a great example, but workshops I do, or other things that I promote on my newsletter. I'd say, I get somewhere between decent engaged and warm launch list numbers, depending on what the call to action is. And I certainly could be a lot more active with my newsletter. It's monthly most of the time. So I think that this is a really valuable statistic. Does anyone want to say anything about anything that I've said thus far? No? Do either of you have newsletters? Jerry, and I know you've got the Substack.
Yes, just the Substack.
Okay. And Stan, you've got a blog, but do you have a newsletter?
I've had a hard time figuring out how to collect
I bet
uh,
so.
newsletter subscribers. I don't do a regular newsletter, but what I did do, I mined my my contact list, which is my entire contact list is about 280 people. Um, I mined it to I got it down to about 20 friends to be advanced readers. That went out on Monday, and I still might get some stragglers, but right now it's 25%
Okay. Well, that's
for
good.
the advanced readers.
That's excellent.
And
Are
I know
you
this.
going to try to have a communication stream with them to like maybe have that be the beginning of your newsletter?
Yeah, I mean, I've already had plotted out the email journey, the typical advanced reader thing where I'm going to follow
Hmm.
up when viewing my when I have the Amazon page live, I'll say, okay, please, let's push it live. Now, those are not all of my advanced readers. I have probably about 10 other ones that I just contacted ad hoc. So I'm probably shorting myself a little bit. So I probably got a total of, at the end of the day, I'll probably have a total of 25 advanced readers among people I know. I went through a setback though just today, yesterday with Book Sirens because they won't allow me to distribute a PDF, which makes me mad. And
Mm,
so I might give another look at NetGalley because I really want to do a PDF. I don't want to do. I'm not
yeah.
selling. I'm not selling any
Yeah.
pub while distributing pub.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Um, so something you might consider. So I would sort of want to separate the ARC process from your newsletter.
from your office.
Um, when I started my newsletter, I just sent an email. I didn't even have like a MailChimp or anything. I was just using my Gmail account. I sent an email out to my entire network. And I said, I'm going to start doing a somewhat regular newsletter. And I had just started my website. I had just set up my website or kind of redone my website. And I said, check out my new website. And if you want to be on my newsletter, let me know. I can't remember whether I did an opt-in or an opt-out. So this was, in 2018. So it was before any of those GDPR rules were in effect. But anyway, I started with that. And then I started emailing people kind of regularly from that list and, had a opt-out option. And then I just sort of grew it from that, Stan. And I mean, at first, I think I was sending something out like maybe once a quarter. So it wasn't like I was really bugging people. But, that's turned into like a 2,000 person list at this point, which I know could be bigger if I pushed it, but which I will at some point. But so you might think about that, just your whole professional thing, saying, I'm going to do a newsletter if you're interested, because now I think you would have to have an opt in. But if you're interested, like, let me know, email me back, and I'll
Okay,
put you on my list.
good idea.
Even if you start off with like 40 people. Oops. Oh, Catherine Leonardo, can you let her in? Um, so I'd start with that, you know,
Okay,
and
yeah. I think that like again the advanced readers were it's distilled down so to such a small group because I wanted to figure out who am I not going to feel awkward by just directly asking if they can read the book. But yeah,
mhm.
I agree that the larger list, and I can also get rid of I can get rid of a lot of bad email addresses that are probably
Yeah,
floating around my expanded list. But that's a good
yeah.
idea.
Hi, Catherine. Thank you for joining. It's wonderful to see your name and your face after so long.
Yes, hi Linda. Gosh, I thought it didn't start till the next hour, but I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So I'm so
Yeah.
sorry, but I'll
Oh,
catch
that's
up on the
okay.
recording.
Yeah, sure. And it's a very intimate group. For some reason, I didn't get many signups for this session. So we're having kind of a conversation. So feel free to interject if you want. Um,
Great.
we've been talking about platform, obviously, and I'm going to just go back a slide or two to sort of catch you up, Catherine. So let me So really, platform, there are three ways that anyone can have a presence online. Platform is really having a presence online and having a relationship with your audience. And those three different buckets are owned, earned, and rented. Owned is, your own website, your newsletter, a blog. Earned is, getting press or reviews or awards or podcasts. You need someone else to shine the spotlight on you. And then rented is social media, so that's Instagram, LinkedIn, any of those. Each of these has, strengths and weaknesses. The benefit of the owned is that you own it, you know, that no one can take it away from you. It's up to you to increase it or decrease it, or, be creative. It's all you. The rented is problematic because you're sort of at the mercy of an algorithm, and things can go awry the way people learned with Twitter. Um, but the benefit is, amazing discoverability and reach if you're lucky enough to, hit the jackpot. And even if you don't, go viral, you still it can increase your visibility and reach just because it's a larger playing field. So I recommend that authors have a website and a mailing list, and then one form of social media. I think that is the most powerful. And the reason that you need all three is, social media, you get that additional discovery. You can engage with other creators. You can form alliances and partnerships and benefit from their visibility. But eventually you want to be driving people to your website so that they can sign up to your newsletter. And then you get into that owned space where you're able to control the conversation and you have direct access to your audience. And I was saying that, for a while, publishers were thinking like, oh, you need to have 100,000 followers. And if you have 100,000 followers, we're going to sell all these books. But it turns out that actually only 1 to 3% of social media followers actually buy books. And that has, begun to trickle down through the publishing community, and publishers are, learning this fact. Whereas a newsletter, depending on how engaged you are with your newsletter, how rigorous you are, how interesting your newsletter is, you can, go from 1 to 3% to 15 to 30% of converted sales from your newsletter audience. So again, this is demonstrating that a newsletter gives you so much more control. So in terms of the social media, which I do believe is an important component in all of this, you really should just find the channel that speaks to you, that you feel most comfortable in. There's no need to be on all the channels unless you really love social media, in which case, do that. That's great. But find the one that you feel is the easiest for you to engage with. And likely you feel that way because your audience is there, because your kind of people are there, because you're getting the kind of information that you're interested in from that platform. So it'll be a reciprocal relationship. So in terms of publishers evaluating a author platform, not all book types have the same requirements from a publisher's perspective. So for instance, literary fiction, in terms of platform, they're not expecting a huge platform to be related to potential success in literary fiction, because literary fiction is really carrying the load with the writing. That aspect of that agreement, that tripod is really bearing weight with the writing. Whereas if you are sort of a thought leader, a self-help person, very kind of personality driven, similar with like a celebrity, they really expect you to have a huge platform because that's what you're selling. You're selling that you have thoughts and that people are interested in your thoughts. So you need to be able to demonstrate that. Whereas, it sort of diminishes as you get higher all the way to the top with literary fiction, where again, it's really the writing, it's the story, it's the buzz of the readers. That's what they're expecting to sell the books. So I think it's important to put yourself in context based on the kind of books that you're working on, in terms of how high, how much pressure you need to put on yourself with platform. But all of these books and authors should have some platform. So, what are publishers looking for? They're looking for an engaged email list. They're looking for an audience that you're speaking to and evidence that people care about what you're writing about. And, that can be shown through engagement instead of numbers. So you may not have 100,000 followers, but you have, 5,000 followers who are really engaged, that if you post something, they're sharing it and they're commenting. They're not just liking it. They're really interacting with it. And often they're doing that because there's an expectation that you're interacting with them as well. And that's one of the things that kind of gets lost, I think, in social media, is that, you post and you just sort of think it's going to have a life of its own, but it doesn't. It needs you to continue to engage, to take it forward. So then this is, an overview of different sort of publishing genres and kind of what their primary platforms are. Again, I don't think that any of this is gospel. And if we've learned anything in terms of this new age of promotion where authors are really the engine, we've learned that, change is the one constant. And, creativity and authenticity are the things that really win the day. So, if you are, cultural nonfiction, but you really love TikTok, I'm not saying don't do TikTok. I mean, that's fine. This is just, you'll find more of this kind of author on these platforms, which then again, as I said earlier, that means your people are there, you're interested in that content, they'll be interested in yours. Maybe there's a net benefit, but I still stand by my earlier statement that you should really focus on the platforms that you feel most comfortable in. And it takes time. At a minimum, it takes 6 months. Just this morning, I was having a conversation with someone who, over the course of 3 years, really actively working on her platform, now has 7,000 newsletter subscribers. It's, taken her 3 years of, twice a week, really engaging emails. So the reason I show these timelines is because authors often wait until they're, publishing their book. They're trying to get their book published before they start thinking about their platform. Whereas it is so much better to take everyone along for the ride from the very beginning, because it's going to take you a while to get any kind of numbers. And, the platform isn't a distraction because it is validating your book. I think, Jerry Ann, you can see that, I'm sure, with your Substack, that, you're probably seeing some things are getting more traction than others. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I've only been doing it for this month. However, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's been interesting to see what gets interaction particularly, and the shorter the better. Have it be skimmable, lots of pictures,
Mm-hmm.
and something maybe rather novel. The last one that I did probably got the most, which was I just focused on an Italian word and how is that Italian word conveyed in
Yeah,
portraits.
I loved that one. I thought that was very good.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that, yeah, feel free to experiment a bit. How's that? And
Yeah.
it's okay if some are duds or some are
Hmm.
go,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. And
Hmm.
but you just got to be comfortable with what you're writing about.
Yeah.
Follow your passion, your why,
Hmm.
yeah, not
Yeah.
feel fakey or like you have to do something because you're supposed to do it. Do it because you
It,
really like it.
right. Well, and I wonder, as you said, you've only been doing it for a month, but I wonder if in time that feedback will kind of influence how you're thinking about your manuscript, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yes, possibly. Yeah, it's also a wake-up call that unfortunately, I mean, there's a lot of skimming going on and
Hmm.
not a lot of people doing a lot of close reading on things. But yeah, yes, I think it will inform it to a degree, but not compromise
Yeah.
the longer form.
Yeah. I think that's a great
Yeah.
position to have. Okay. So I'm going to be handing out, well, we're going to do a follow-up email to everybody and we'll send, or maybe James has already put it up there. Um, we'll send out a handout that I have where you can actually evaluate your platform. Those of you who are in the strategic author stand, you've probably already gotten this handout. Um, but it's it's a little grid and you sort of fill in what social media you have and some statistics, and I also recommend evaluating a comparable author, an aspirational author, someone who you feel in some way you align with, and to see how they're doing it. Um, and that's a fun thing to do, and we'll be sending that in the email, in the follow-up email with the recording. We'll
Yeah.
send that out, so you'll see that. Um, so I wonder if anybody wants to talk about their platform, or if you have any questions.
Well, I've been working a lot on my own, my own platform, but my own situation. I'm thinking more and more horizontally. I guess that's the way I think of it, and it's the picture in my head of this building by person, like almost disconnected, just whoever I can reach, however I can reach them. If I think of platform vertically, it's like, well, how many Instagram followers do you have? How many?
Mm-hmm.
How? Yeah,
Mm,
it's
volume. Hmm.
and where I'm
Yeah.
thinking more about how can I put together 1,000 people?
Spread.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
And there was something interesting that happened just this morning. We were talking a lot about bookstores for the kind of book I'm writing, bookstores and book clubs. And so I'm
Hmm.
really doing aggressive recon. And I was pleasantly surprised to find, well, as we mentioned before in the group, my book has a regional angle,
Hmm.
and it's the California coast. And I was pleasantly surprised to see how many indie bookstores are still
Hmm.
in that expanded area. And I really think that there's interest in it, not just in the area of focus, but maybe in a 200 square
Yeah,
mile, 200
I agree.
radius.
Mhm.
Um, And there was one happy moment. I told you I was all frustrated with my book sirens, and how I'm gonna. That felt kind of like a setback, but I had a moment today that kind of bucked me up, and I I don't know if you've ever if any of us have been looking for a job and you see a job. This is very rare, and it happened to me once. I was looking for a job. I was just coming off a layoff, and the job description was literally, there isn't anyone better in the entire world that fits that position better than me. Now,
Hmm.
I didn't, I ended up not, it didn't happen, mainly because it wasn't going to pay a lot. But the job description was like, I've never felt like that before. I never felt like there isn't anyone
Hmm.
on the, like, I won't go into detail, but, and I had that moment today. There's a tiny bookstore, in Big Sur, California, called the Henry Miller Memorial Library.
Hmm.
It's a little famous as far as, it's kind of a landmark, and it's a place in a redwood grove off the side of Highway 1, but it is the Henry Miller Library, and a lot of people who are involved with that author. Um, and I thought, my God, they couldn't get anyone better to come there and do a reading than me.
Hmm. Hmm.
Not only did I live in Big Sur, the plot is about Big Sur, but
Hmm.
for a time when I was a kid, I lived in Henry Miller's house.
Oh, wow.
And I knew the whole scene and knew everything. So I thought,
Hmm.
who better to come to the Henry Miller Library and tell an anecdote about time past than me with this book that has. So I thought, well, that's just one tiny example, but I thought about the subject matter, and like I really felt emboldened to start to. I hate being a salesman, but when you feel like you have a reason to be there in front of somebody pitching something.
Hmm.
And so anyway, I thought about again, I expanded it, and I know there are a lot of bookstores around there that I wouldn't feel bad about going right up to the person, not
Hmm.
any old time, but however I do it, where they're making an appointment with email. And so that is my platform strategy now. It's more like just it, just attack any opportunity I have. If it
Hmm.
blows up in my face, fine, move on to the next one.
Yeah.
And
No, I love that. I think that, you're blessed in that you do have this, somewhat unique aspect to your story, and that you're going to have an audience of people there who are just really welcoming. And I think you're going to do really well with that. And then hopefully that's, the rock in the flat water that then begins making all those circles that go out. And you'll probably get some press, you'll get some local press that could potentially, I mean, California is a huge market, but you never know when a human interest story, sparks some interest. So that could be all you need, Stan. And it's great. Whatever you do, capture email addresses, and get people to sign up to your newsletter, because you have other books, right? And you want to be building on that community. But I love your strategy.
yeah, and I thought about how the other members of our group, have similar opportunities too. And you, of course, your opportunities, and then, Jerry Ann, I was thinking about you this morning. Like, well, you have such a unique take on something, and you're so focused that if you stop thinking about the focus as, oh, I'm so far out of the game, think of it as who's in the focus, and when those people who are in your field of interest, then it gets a lot easier. And then you can start to see, oh, well, there's, 10 people here, 20 people there.
Yeah, I can't emphasize enough, even though I'm very much a beginner at a lot of this, but I've done a blog for like 8 years. It's hard to convert to subscribers. I might get, 2,000 views a month or something, and that's organic searches, which is great, but it's hard to convert to getting
Mhm.
subscribers. But that don't be discouraged, and tailor it to your specific writing and your audience in your genre, and in your case, Stan, really, I mean, the California connection, I think, is very appealing. So
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited to see where where it all
Mm-hmm.
goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're almost at the end. So again, I'm going to just mention that I'm doing a 5-day free workshop challenge on becoming a more strategic author. Anyone who participates gets to have free access to the strategic author community and see what we're all about and participate in this challenge, which is kind of a combination of some, live virtual meetups when we talk about topics and maybe do some co-working, and then there's time to work on your own, and we're going to be focused on comparable titles and how they can help understand the ecosystem that your book is going to be
Mm-hmm.
existing in, and what kind of information you can gather from uh, different kinds of comparables, different levels of comparables, and what to do if you can't find an exact match comp for your book, different techniques to address those very real challenges. And this is a great exercise for people who are interested in being traditionally published and putting proposals together. But also, if you're an indie author, it gives you the information that you need to make intelligent choices about your book. So there's that. And then applications are open for the strategic author cohorts that are going to start in the fall. And we'll have a link to that in the follow-up email, but there's a QR code here. If anyone wants to just take a picture and apply. Um, and yeah, so I have all of that. I'm going to stop sharing, and thank you everybody for showing up. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to stick around for a few more minutes and chat, or if not, we can all say goodbye.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Catherine, it's lovely to see you again. I hope you're doing well.
Good to see you. I'm doing well, working on a memoir. That's why I'm here.
Oh, well, excellent. Check out the 5-day challenge.
Yeah, I probably will do it.
Okay, good. We'll send all of the info in the follow-up email. So
Okay, thanks. And you'll be
yeah.
sending a recording of today?
Yep, it'll have the
Great.
recording and the handout and all the things.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Thank you, Stan and Jerianne, for joining. And
Thanks.
James,
Okay.
always.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.